I'm nearly 18, and for the last few months, I haven't been on the best terms with my mom and stepdad. Here's the whole story so you can see where I'm coming from. A couple of years ago, my dad passed away, which was tough on its own. But before he died, he set things up so I'd have an inheritance waiting for me when I turned 18. Besides this inheritance, I also receive survivor benefits because of my dad's death, which are supposed to help cover my expenses as I grow up. My mom has access to these benefits and uses them for stuff I need, which is totally what it's supposed to be for. But here's where things start to get messy. We've always lived pretty modestly in a 3-bedroom apartment. My stepdad works as a substitute teacher and doesn't bring in a ton of cash. My mom's only working part-time as a receptionist, so we've never been the family that goes on fancy vacations or splashes out on big expensive things. Then, out of the blue, they buy this big fancy house. It was so sudden and it didn't add up because we never seemed to have the money for such extravagance. Initially, my mom was acting super sketchy about how they could afford the house. After a while, she finally admitted that they'd used some of the money my dad left me to help pay for it. When I found out, I totally flipped. I couldn't believe they would just use my inheritance without even asking. They tried to justify their actions by saying the house was also for me, but that didn't make any sense. I pushed back, asking if they were planning to move out and transfer the house to my name when I turned 18. They said no, of course. They kept insisting the house was somehow for my benefit, but that just felt like a convenient excuse. I mean, I'm almost moving out and I've only lived there for a short time since we got it. They mentioned that there was still some money left and I could use it for college if I picked a cheaper school, but honestly, the money they took was enough for me to one day buy my own place. And here's an extra twist that makes things even more frustrating. My stepdad never really liked my dad because my mom had to pay a bit of child support since I spent a lot of time with my dad. But now, suddenly, my stepdad doesn't seem to mind using the money my dad left for me. It's pretty hypocritical and just adds to my anger. Just last weekend, all of this felt even more real and annoying. My stepdad's entire family came over and stayed with us Friday night. The next morning, while I was trying to get ready for work and make some eggs, the house was crowded and chaotic with his family members. It just made me feel even more like an outsider in what was supposed to be partially my home, paid for with my inheritance. It all just seems so unfair and makes me question if I'm overreacting or if my feelings are justified. So before I was heading out to work, my stepdad starts questioning me. He was wondering why I didn't make more breakfast for his family who were over visiting. I told him straight up that I was already running late for work and just didn't have the time to cook for everyone. He seemed to think it wasn't a big deal if I was a bit late to work, because it's not often they have guests over. We went back and forth a bit because honestly, I wasn't about to stop everything and cook when he could just as easily do it himself. Things got a bit heated when he said, "Don't talk to me like that in my house." Now, our kitchen doesn't have a door that separates it from the living room, so everyone in the living room could totally hear our conversation. Feeling a bit cornered and really frustrated, I ended up saying quite loudly, "Actually, it's my house since you paid for it with the money you stole from me." I was referring to how they used my inheritance from my dad to buy the house without really asking me. My mom now expects me to apologize for embarrassing him in front of his whole family. They all apparently had a lot to say about our argument after I left for work. When I got home later, they were all gone, but you could cut the tension with a knife. My stepdad just ignored me completely. It was that bad. I really don't feel like I have anything to apologize for. I mean, I was just standing up for myself, right? But now my mom thinks I'm not a good son and kind of an idiot for how I handled things. I'm curious to see if others might feel the same way, or if they think I was right to stand my ground. What do you think? So am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. Screw your idiot stepdad and your mom, but especially your stepdad. Get a lawyer. Do not let that crap go. I would be beyond furious to find out they bought themselves a house. You're just a kid and they say it's for you. Get out of here. I'm absolutely livid just reading this crap. Honestly, I say his mom is actually the biggest idiot here. That's her child that she completely screwed. I doubt the stepdad was named trustee or executor of the funds. She had to have agreed to this for it to happen. I can't imagine betraying my kid like that. Spending your child's inheritance on a house with your new partner is beyond selfish and foul. Even if you were 10 and had 8 years to live in that house, they had no right to spend your inheritance on their house. That money was for your future, not theirs. To be honest, I don't think you did anything wrong by expressing it's your house. Was it petty? Yes, but justifiably so. It doesn't even sound like you were trying to humiliate him. You stated the truth. He wouldn't be embarrassed if there weren't merit to what you said, kiddo. You might need to get a copy of the paperwork that says it's your inheritance. And who's in control of the decisions? I think you should talk to an estate lawyer because if your dad structured his will correctly, I would say your mother has misused funds, put in a trust for you for her benefit. Don't pick a huge fight with your mom and stepdad over this until you have the facts. But I really think you should have a professional review the situation and let you know your options. I'll go to a lawyer who deals with a breach of fiduciary responsibilities, specifically a litigator. Mom and stepdad most likely breached their duties as custodians of OPS funds. Bring the suit as soon as you turn 18 as there are time limits, statutes of limitations involved. Not exactly my area, but I believe that in my state it's 1 year from when you turn 18. Story 2. I'm a 19-year-old girl and I've been going through a pretty rough patch. A bit of backstory to start. A few years back when I was much younger, I made some choices that really changed the course of my life. I ended up getting pregnant, which was a huge shock, and honestly, I wasn't ready to be a mom at all. I was scared and overwhelmed. At that time, my older sister, who was 25 and couldn't have kids of her own, really wanted to be a parent. She saw my situation as an opportunity for her to become a mom. She asked me, or rather, pushed me to let her and her husband adopt my baby. I was in a tough spot and eventually agreed because I believed it would be best for the baby. I made it clear, though, that I didn't want to be involved in my daughter's life as her mother. I just wasn't ready for that role. Fast forward to now, I'm still living at home with my parents, who are 57 and 55 years old, respectively. I'm also still finishing high school because the whole situation with my pregnancy and the aftermath caused me to miss a lot of school. As a result, I'm a couple of years behind and won't be graduating until I'm 20. Things took another turn a few months ago when my sister and her husband decided to go their separate ways, and suddenly she moved back into our parents' house. And she didn't come back alone. She brought my daughter, who is still very young, with her. Honestly, this was the last thing I wanted. I mean, I didn't want them to be out on the streets, but having my daughter so close has made things incredibly complicated for me emotionally. To deal with all this, I've been throwing myself into work. I picked up extra hours at my part-time job, and whenever I'm not working, I pretty much live at the library just to avoid being at home. The idea of moving out has crossed my mind more than once, but financially, it's just not possible right now. I can't afford to rent a place on my own with the little I earn, and I still need to finish school before I can even think about getting a better job. Now, here's where it gets even trickier. My sister started asking me to take care of my daughter in the evenings. Her idea is that this would give her some time to go out, socialize, and maybe feel a bit better after her breakup. I told her I wasn't comfortable with this arrangement. I mean, I had set boundaries from the start that I wasn't going to be involved like that. But she insisted, saying that it's not really babysitting since it's my own child, and that I should want to bond with her. This really upset me, and one evening, I just had to get out, so I stayed with a friend to clear my head. I've tried talking to my parents about how all of this is making me feel, but they seem to think I should be more understanding and accommodating considering my sister's tough situation. They believe that maybe if I start spending time with my daughter, I'll change my mind and actually start enjoying it. They're really pushing for us to be one big happy family again, but for me it's just not that simple. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I owe it to my parents to try a bit harder, but emotionally, it's just so difficult to navigate. Am I the idiot for not wanting anything to do with her? Now for the top comments. Not the idiot. Tough times because your poor sister can't go out clubbing. If your sister had not wanted your baby as a child, you would have given it up for adoption. She's not your daughter, she's your sister's daughter. Even if you had been so inclined to babysit, either sister wants to do a socialized. That is not a good enough reason. Do not let your family pressure you into something you don't want to do. Tell them no, and you will not babysit under any circumstances. Tell them you'll be cordial to your sister, but she's creating the problem. Let me get this straight. Your sister pressured you to allow her to raise the child as her own. But now that it's financially convenient for her, the child is suddenly your own child again, so that she can manipulate you into providing free babysitting so she can go out and socialize. Your sister can't have it both ways, and she needs to get that straight. Right now, it's just a crappy thing to do. It is the child of the sister now. It is hard enough for all to see the child that she gave birth to daily, but pulling the mother card out to get what she wants is such an idiot move. She isn't the mother. She doesn't need a bond. And just to go out. Maybe living with other family or friends is an option. Story 3. I'm a 31-year-old woman, and I've been married for a year now to a man who's 33. We're like any other couple, we have our good days and our not-so-good ones. Before I met him, I was in a different relationship and had 2 kids. Unfortunately, their dad isn't in the picture anymore, which was tough, but life moves on. My husband, let's call him Timmy, has really stepped up. He's taken to the kids, and they love him, which honestly melts my heart. But here's the thing. Timmy has this habit that started to really get under my skin. He's been using our kids to send messages and affection my way, which might sound sweet to some, but it's got its complications. For instance, he'll plant a kiss on our kids, like literally give them a kiss, and then send them over to me to deliver that kiss. They'll come up, give me a kiss on the cheek, and say something like, "Timmy wants you to have this kiss," or "This is from Timmy." At first, it was rare, maybe even kind of cute, but now it happens all the time, and it's starting to feel not right. The main issue I have with this is multi-layered. First, those kisses, they're supposed to be from him, directly from him to me. When he sends them through the kids, it doesn't just feel insincere, but it also puts the kids in a weird position. I mean, imagine being a little kid, not fully understanding adult relationships, and suddenly you're the courier of affection. What if they don't feel like being part of this exchange? They might do it anyway because they feel obliged, and that's not fair to them. Moreover, it's not just kisses. Timmy uses them to communicate other things too, especially when we're not getting along. Say we had a disagreement. Instead of resolving it directly with me, he might send a message through the kids. This kind of behavior can be really confusing for them. They shouldn't have to play messenger, especially in situations that might hold emotional weight. It's a burden no child should have to bear. I've brought this up with Timmy. I explained why I think it's not a good idea, how it might affect the kids, and how it makes me feel. He promised he would stop, which relieved me because I thought we were on the same page. However, this past Sunday showed me otherwise. I woke up to my youngest coming into my bedroom to deliver another kiss from Timmy. It was obvious he felt awkward, almost like he was compelled to do it, which just broke my heart. I kept my cool for the sake of my son, accepted the kiss, but I knew I had to address this again with Timmy. So I headed to the kitchen where Timmy was making coffee, and I couldn't hold back my frustration. I confronted him about why he was still using the kids this way after agreeing not to. Instead of the supportive response I hoped for, he defended his actions. He argued that he was just fostering affection in the kids, that it was harmless and even beneficial. Then he went further, accusing me of being uptight and overly sensitive, basically suggesting that my concerns were trivial. That really stung. It made me question myself for a moment, but deep down I knew this wasn't right. I tried to keep my calm and reiterated that this needed to stop, not just for our relationship's sake, but for our kids' well-being. Timmy didn't take that well. He became really upset, claimed I was overreacting, and dramatically said I had ruined his entire weekend with my complaints. He stormed out, leaving me there in the kitchen, feeling both upset and confused. Now I'm left wondering, am I really being unreasonable here? Is it wrong to insist that our relationship and the way we show affection remain between us adults, without dragging the kids into it? I believe it's vital to protect our children from feeling like they're pawns in our relationship, to ensure they grow up knowing that affection should be straightforward and genuine, not a tool for communication in adult disagreements. It's a lot to think about, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure out the best way to handle this without causing more rifts in our family. What do you think? Now for the top comments, not the idiot. I would be bothered by the constant kisses too, but I would be even more bothered by this. He also uses them to play messenger whenever we fight. This is absolutely unacceptable. Kids should never be involved in the arguments. This is a boundary that should not be crossed, and he should be mindful of it. And he's not even their dad. Yikes. On bikes. This is just so wrong from every angle. First, making kids a go-between for parents is awful. Goes on to the parents never speaking and the kids feeling guilty and responsible and also involved in adult fights. Then he attacks your personality by calling you uptight and whiny for daring to set boundaries for your children. Also, the sudden flare of anger very worrying. Kids should never be the messenger ever. You need to stop this. To me, it sounds like he wants to interrupt whatever it is you're doing, but doesn't want to catch the blame. So he sends the kids and it's backfiring because you're still getting mad at him for using your children. Think about the times you sent the kids for kisses and what you were doing. See if a pattern arises. Story 4. I'm a 29-year-old woman who moved into a new neighborhood nearly 2 years ago. It's just me living in my house. I don't have a partner or children, but my mom, who's 80 years old, lives with me for about half the year, between 6 to 8 months. During the remainder of the year, she travels back to our home country to stay with her sister and friends, enjoying her retirement with her peers. I absolutely adore this neighborhood. It has a super warm, friendly vibe, and everyone seems to know each other. We have community barbecues at least once a month. which is a great way for everyone to catch up and the kids to play. It's really like one big family. Everyone is involved. There's always something going on, making it a vibrant place to live. One of my closest sets of neighbors has a special situation. They have a young daughter who is severely disabled. She is nonverbal and wheelchair-bound, which presents quite a few challenges for them daily. They've hired nurses to assist with her care, which speaks volumes about the level of attention and medical care she requires. Understandably, this has taken a significant toll on her parents, especially her mom, who had to leave her job to become a full-time carer for her daughter and their other child, who is older. The older child is a gem, truly one of the sweetest and most respectful kids in the neighborhood. I've gotten to know the parents quite well, and they are just wonderful people. They're the kind of neighbors everyone wishes they had: considerate, kind, and always willing to lend a hand despite the challenges they face at home. Now, regarding my own situation, to assist my mom with her mobility issues, I invested in a minivan a while back. This isn't just any minivan, though. I had it customized with a ramp and special wheelchair tie-downs to make transportation smoother for her. It's equipped to handle not just a wheelchair, but also any other mobility equipment she might need. This setup works perfectly for us when she's here. However, when she goes abroad for those 4 to 6 months each year, the van mostly just sits unused in my driveway. I only really use it if I need to haul something big that won't fit in my regular car. One day I noticed my neighbors struggling to get their daughter into their car. They don't have a vehicle equipped for a wheelchair, so every trip starts with the challenge of lifting her out of the wheelchair and carefully managing her medical tubes and wires to avoid any disconnections or discomfort. It's a process that clearly takes a toll on both the parents and the child, and it's painful to watch. Seeing them struggle like this day in and day out made me think about how I could help. Since my van is just gathering dust for half the year, I figured why not offer it to them during those months. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. The van is just sitting there anyway, and here's a chance to make a significant difference in my neighbors' lives. So I approached them one day and suggested the idea. I told them that whenever my mom is out of the country, they could use the van to transport their daughter. I explained how the van was fully equipped with a ramp and the necessary fixtures to securely transport someone in a wheelchair. I hoped this could at least alleviate one aspect of their daily challenges, making it easier for them to get their daughter out and about without the physical strain and logistical headache they were enduring. They were touched by the offer, and we discussed how we could arrange the logistics of sharing the van. It felt good to be able to help out in such a practical way, and it also reinforced the sense of community spirit that I love so much about this neighborhood. I've been in this cool arrangement with my neighbors for about 18 months where they can use my minivan when my mom isn't in town. The van is a big help for them because it's equipped with a ramp and everything they need for their daughter's wheelchair. This setup has been working out great for both of us until recently. So here's what's going on now. My neighbors came up with this plan to take their kids on a road trip to Disney World for the first time. Sounds fun, right? But the timing is a bit tricky. They want to go on this trip that will last just over 2 weeks, and it turns out that's exactly when my mom is supposed to fly back in to stay with me. She's coming in from a long 12-hour flight, and I need the van to pick her up from the airport so she can ride comfortably without the hassle of getting in and out of a regular car. I figured it wouldn't be a big deal, so I asked my neighbors if they could just push their trip back by a few days. That way, I could use the van for my mom's arrival, and they could still go on their trip, but they were really set on their dates and didn't want to change them. When I insisted that I needed the van for my mom, they called me selfish and got pretty upset. And it didn't stop there. The vibe in the neighborhood has totally changed for me. I wasn't invited to our last community barbecue, which stung a bit. People around here aren't as friendly as they used to be. They don't wave back or say hi anymore. Even the neighborhood kids, who usually come around to play with my dogs and hang out in the yard, haven't shown up for almost 2 weeks. I tried reaching out to my neighbors to sort this out, but my texts wouldn't go through. It looks like they might have blocked my number. Now I feel like I'm living in a hostile environment. It's really uncomfortable, and I'm starting to wonder if I should just let them have the van and find another way to manage when my mom arrives. It's a tough spot to be in because I want to keep the peace, but I also need to make sure my mom is taken care of and comfortable. What do you think? Should I just give in to keep things friendly around here? Or should I stand my ground and find a different solution for picking up my mom? Now for the top comments. Not the idiot and don't cave. Unfortunately, it appears your friendly neighborhood is actually made up of a group of false friends. You didn't ask for anything unreasonable, but they wouldn't adjust for you, even though you were incredibly generous with them. This neighborhood has turned toxic. And if it's possible, I suggest you find a community of more honest people also. Who the heck bases their vacation around someone else's car? The audacity to call OPs selfish after a year and a half of letting them use her vans just to be nice, let alone trying to find a compromise. That's outrageous. You're a good person, OP. Don't let the idiots win. I also wouldn't be surprised if they change some of the stories to make themselves look better. I tell all the neighbors your side of the story, whether you move or not. This is a whole other level of ridiculous, choosy beggar behavior. I'm sorry that your neighborhood has turned on you. I think you should rescind all offers to use the ban, period, because their behavior is disgusting. Also, if they can afford a road trip to Disney World for 2 weeks, then I kind of doubt they're as hard off as they've represented themselves. LP, I think these neighbors have taken advantage of your generous nature. A 2 week trip to Disney World for 4 people will cost several grand, and that's if they pack their own food and stay in properties far from the resort. Instead of saving that money to buy a van of their own, they think they should be able to blow it on vacation and demands you provide their transportation for free. Why should they ever buy a vehicle of their own if they can bully you into providing a free ride? Story 5. I'm a 23-year-old guy, and things are getting pretty serious with my 22-year-old girlfriend. We've decided to take the next big step in our relationship and move in together. I've already stayed over at her place a few times to get a feel for what living together might be like. Everything seemed cool until I noticed something that kind of threw me off. She's got this shelf in her bedroom, right? It's filled with all sorts of things. Books, some plants, a few trinkets, and a picture. But it's not just any picture. It's a photo of her dad from way back when he was about our age, long before she was even born. Now you might think, what's the big deal? But here's the thing. The picture is in a heart-shaped frame. To me, that just adds a layer of weirdness to it. I just don't get why she has it. Her dad's a great guy, don't get me wrong, and he's very much alive and well. She sees him all the time, so it's not like she needs the picture to remember him by. Plus, it's the only family photo she displays in her room, which makes it stand out even more among all the unrelated items on her shelf. One night, I decided to bring it up. I told her that waking up every morning and seeing a picture of a man I never knew at our age was kind of creepy. I explained that I know her dad now, but seeing him as a young guy just throws me off. It feels like I'm looking at a stranger, not the man I've come to respect and like. So I suggested maybe she could move the picture somewhere else or take it down. She didn't react well to that. She got pretty upset and explained that she's had that picture since she was a little girl. She told me it's special to her because she's always been close to her dad and loves him dearly. That picture in the heart-shaped frame has been with her through a lot, and she's never really thought of it in any other way than as a sweet reminder of her dad's younger years. The conversation quickly went south from there. She started crying and accused me of making her relationship with her dad into something weird and uncomfortable. She even offered a compromise. If I didn't want it to be the first thing I saw every morning, she could flip it down before we went to bed. But honestly, that solution didn't sit right with me either. It's not just about seeing the picture. It's about what it represents and the awkwardness it brings into our shared space. I stood my ground and reiterated that the picture made me uncomfortable, and that having it there, even if it was flipped down at night, felt weird. Well, she didn't take that well at all. She told me I was being unreasonable and making a big deal out of nothing. Things got heated, and eventually she told me to go home. Since that night, she hasn't spoken to me. Now I'm left wondering about a lot of things. Am I making too much of a fuss over a simple picture? Is it unreasonable for me to ask for it to be removed from our shared space? I mean, moving in together is supposed to be about compromise and understanding each other's feelings, right? But at the same time, I feel like my feelings should matter too. It's a tricky situation because I don't want to disrespect her or her love for her dad, but I also want to feel comfortable in my own home. This whole thing has made me think a lot about what it means to blend our lives together. It's not just about sharing space. It's about respecting each other's feelings and finding a way to make both people feel at home. I'm hoping we can find a way through this, but right now it feels like we're at a stalemate. What do you think? Was I out of line, or is it normal to want to set some boundaries about these things? Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. Isn't it wonderful when the trash takes itself out? You are the idiot. You took something sweet and innocent and just made it creepy. And the fact that you saw it that way says more about you than you know. Stick to your guns and don't move in. She deserves better. What's wrong with you? Her photo of her dad makes you insecure. Are you jealous of her dad? That's pathetic. What a weird thing to be upset over, because he's alive. She can't have pictures of him. And it has to be a current picture, because you didn't know him then. Jesus. I'd dump you and keep the picture if I were her. She's right. You're the one being creepy. It's a picture of her dad that she's had since she was a young child. If that threatens you, the issue is you, not the picture, right? I mean, we have had dudes jealous of exes, kids face cream, dead husbands, blankets, bad time pets, and now checks, notes, roses, family photographs. So this might be a new low. You are the idiot, in case that wasn't clear.